I'm 58 years old, and I've been carrying a secret that could rewrite human history. For 23 years, I've kept my mouth shut, followed protocol, and lived with the knowledge that everything we've been told about our place in this world is a lie. My name is Marcus Rivera. I was an FBI special agent for 31 years, and in 2001, I became the first and only federal agent to conduct a formal interrogation of a living Bigfoot. What it told me that day in a concrete room beneath Fort Detrick changed everything I thought I knew about intelligence, consciousness, and why certain truths stay buried. This is that story. September 2001, I was 35 years old, 7 years into my career with the FBI, assigned to the Behavioral Analysis Unit out of Quantico. I specialized in interviewing high-value targets, extracting information from people who didn't want to talk. I was good at it. Patient, methodical, and persistent. I'd interviewed mob bosses, serial killers, and domestic terrorists. I thought I'd seen everything. On September 19, 2001, 8 days after the towers fell, I got a call at 3 a.m. My section chief, a man named Donald Pritchard, spoke in a tone I'd never heard from him before. Careful, almost afraid. "Rivera, I need you at Fort Detrick by Oro 800. Bring nothing. Tell no one. This is executive-level classification." "What's the assignment?" "You'll be briefed on site. Marcus, this one's different. Everything you think you know about your job, leave it at the door." I drove to Fort Detrick in Maryland as the sun rose, my mind racing. Fort Detrick was Army biodefense research, not FBI territory. Whatever this was, it crossed jurisdictions in ways that made me nervous. At the main gate, I wasn't checked in like a normal visitor. Instead, a woman in civilian clothes with a Department of Defense badge escorted me through a series of security checkpoints that went deeper and deeper underground. No phones allowed, no recording devices, no notes except what they provided. We descended 4 levels below the surface. "Agent Rivera," the woman said as we walked down a concrete corridor lit by fluorescent lights. "What you're about to see has been classified at the highest level since 1967. Fewer than 200 people in the entire government know this program exists. You're being read in because you have a specific skill set we need. Extraction of information from non-cooperative subjects." "What kind of subject?" She stopped at a steel door marked only with a number, 7. "A non-human intelligence." The briefing room was small, concrete, and cold. 3 people waited inside. An Army colonel I didn't recognize, a woman from the NSA, and Donald Pritchard, my section chief. The colonel spoke first. "Agent Rivera, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this facility. You will sign documentation accepting criminal penalties, including life imprisonment for disclosure. Do you understand?" "I understand." In 1967, a joint military-civilian operation in the Pacific Northwest resulted in the capture of a creature commonly referred to in folklore as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. This creature has been held in a secure facility under this installation for 34 years. During that time, it has been studied extensively by biological and behavioral specialists. 3 months ago, the creature began exhibiting new behavior. It started attempting communication. I stared at him. Communication. "Structured, purposeful communication," the NSA woman said. "Drawn symbols, mathematical patterns, attempts at vocalization. Our behavioral psychologists believe it's been trying to tell us something specific, but it refuses to cooperate with our research staff. It shows signs of extreme stress, aggression, and has twice attempted self-harm." "Why me?" "Because," Pritchard said, "you have a 94% success rate in getting hostile subjects to open up. You build rapport. You make them feel heard. We need to know what this creature wants to communicate." National security implications. National security implications from a Bigfoot. From a non-human intelligence that has been observing us for God knows how long, the colonel said. "Yes, that has significant implications." They showed me photographs. The creature was massive, over 8 feet tall, covered in dark brown hair that was graying around the face. The photos showed it in what looked like a large containment cell, sitting against a concrete wall. But what struck me wasn't its size or appearance. It was its eyes. In every photograph, those eyes looked directly at the camera with something I recognized instantly from my years interviewing humans. Awareness, calculation, and sadness. It's been held here for 34 years? Correct. Alone? Correct? Jesus Christ, I whispered. You've been keeping something intelligent in solitary confinement for 3 decades? That's classified, the colonel said flatly. Your job isn't to judge the program. Your job is to establish communication and extract information. Can you do that? I looked at the photographs again, at those eyes. Yeah, I said, I can do that. They gave me 2 hours to prepare. I read through files documenting 34 years of observation. The creature had been captured in the Cascade Mountains in Washington state after it had been tranquilized by a specialized military unit. The capture operation had been authorized at the highest levels of government after multiple sightings and increasing evidence that something unknown was living in the American wilderness. For the first 10 years, it had been treated like an animal, kept in a cage, studied like a lab specimen. Then, gradually, researchers began noticing things: tool use, problem solving, emotional responses that went beyond basic animal behavior, depression, grief, anger. By 1980, protocols had changed: larger living space, better conditions, attempts at enrichment. But it had never been released, never been allowed contact with others of its kind if they existed, never been given anything approaching freedom. The recent communication attempts had started in June 2001. Drawn symbols on the floor using food, patterns tapped on the walls, attempts at human-like vocalizations, and then, in August, it had stopped eating for 6 days until researchers provided it with drawing materials. It had drawn a map, a detailed, accurate map of the Pacific Northwest, showing mountain ranges, rivers, and a specific location marked with a symbol no one could interpret. It wants something, the research lead had written in his notes, and it's desperate enough to risk death to communicate it. That's where I came in. At 1400 hours on September 19, 2001, I entered Containment Room 7. The room was large, maybe 30 by 40 feet, with concrete walls and floors. There was a sleeping platform, a water source, and basic amenities, cameras in every corner, thick glass observation windows on one wall, behind which I knew researchers were watching. And sitting in the far corner, watching me with those intelligent eyes, was the creature. Up close, it was even more impressive, easily 8 feet tall even sitting down, with shoulders that looked like they could bend steel. Its hands were enormous, but clearly dexterous, and it held them in its lap in an almost human posture. The face was ape-like, but not quite, the eyes set further forward, the brow heavy but expressive. It watched me enter and sit down in the metal chair they'd provided. I'd asked for the chair to be placed in the middle of the room, not near the door. Non-threatening positioning. For 5 full minutes, neither of us moved. I just sat there, hands visible, making no sudden movements. In interrogation, the first move is always patience. Let them see you're not a threat. Finally, I spoke. My name is Marcus Rivera. I'm here to listen to you. The creature's eyes narrowed slightly. It made a low sound, not aggressive, more like a rumble of acknowledgement. I know you've been trying to communicate something, I continued. I know you drew a map. I saw it. It's beautiful work. Very detailed. The creature shifted, leaning forward slightly. Interest. I'm not like the others, I said. I'm not a researcher. I'm not here to study you. I'm here because I'm good at helping people tell me things that are important to them. And I think you have something important to say. The creature stared at me for a long moment. Then it did something that made my skin prickle. It reached out one massive hand and pointed directly at me, then at itself, then made a gesture like opening a book. Talk, communicate, share. Yes, I said quietly. That's exactly what I'm here for. For the next 2 hours, we worked on establishing a basic communication system. The creature couldn't produce human speech. Its vocal anatomy was different, but it could understand English perfectly. That much became clear immediately. I started simple. Pointing at objects, getting confirmation, then concepts, food, water, sleep, yes, no, more, stop. The creature learned fast, frighteningly fast. Within an hour, we had maybe 50 distinct gestures and vocalizations worked out. It was like watching someone remember a language they'd once known. Then, I took a risk. "You've been here 34 years, I said. "That's a long time to be alone." The creature's expression changed. Its shoulders sagged and it made a sound that was unmistakably a sound of grief. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "That shouldn't have happened to you. You didn't deserve that." The creature looked at me with something that might have been surprise. Then it pointed at the observation window where the researchers watched. It made a harsh sound and a dismissive gesture. "Them. They don't understand." "But you think I might?" The creature nodded slowly. Then it stood, and I tensed despite myself, 8 feet of muscle and power rising to its full height, but it didn't approach me. Instead, it walked to the wall and began drawing with its finger on the concrete, using some kind of charcoal substance it had saved. It drew quickly, with practiced strokes, the same map from before, but with more detail. Mountains, rivers, and that marked location. Then it drew something new. Stick figures, lots of them. Dozens of small figures clustered around the marked location. "Your people," I said. "There are more of you there?" Emphatic nodding, excited vocalizations. "Yes, yes, yes." "You want to go back to them?" The creature turned to face me fully. It placed both hands over its chest, then gestured outward in a sweeping motion. Then it made the saddest sound I'd ever heard from any living thing. A keening, mournful cry that echoed off the concrete walls. "You're dying here," I said quietly, slowly, "in this place." The creature nodded once, then it did something that made tears spring to my eyes. It drew a new symbol, a simple one, a single figure, isolated, separate from the group. It pointed at the symbol, then at itself, lost, alone, separated. "They don't know what happened to you, your family." The creature made a sound of confirmation, then added more drawings. A scenario unfolded on the wall, the creature foraging, something happening, the trap, the capture, armed figures, vehicles, being taken away. And then, heartbreakingly, it drew small figures searching, looking, coming back to the same place over and over. "They've been looking for you. For 34 years." The creature slumped against the wall, overcome with emotion. Its massive shoulders shook. I stood up slowly. "I'm going to try to help you, but I need you to tell me everything. Why does the government want to keep you here? What are they afraid of?" The creature turned and looked directly at the observation window. Then it did something I didn't expect. It laughed. A rough, barking sound that was unmistakably mocking. Then it began to draw again. What it drew over the next 30 minutes changed everything. It drew human figures, cities, technologies, and then it drew something else, its own people, watching, always watching, from the forests, from the mountains, from places humans didn't go, observing us for thousands of years. "You've been here the whole time," I said, not hiding, observing. The creature nodded. Then it drew more. Symbols I didn't recognize, mathematical formulas that looked almost like equations, astronomical charts, and something that looked disturbingly like a timeline, with events marked along it, events that hadn't happened yet. "I don't understand," I said. "What is this?" The creature made a frustrated sound. It pointed at its head, then at mine, then made a gesture like information flowing. "You're trying to tell me something about intelligence? About thinking?" The creature nodded vigorously. Then it drew 2 figures, one human, one like itself, with different sized heads. It made the human head smaller, the Sasquatch head larger. Then it added something to the drawing that made my blood run cold. Both heads connected by lines to the same source, the same origin. "We're related," I said. "You're saying humans and your species are related." The creature made a sound of partial agreement. Then it drew something more complex. A tree with multiple branches, humans on one branch, its species on another branch, but both branches coming from the same root, and one more thing. Its branch was older. "You were here first," I whispered, "before humans." The creature tapped the drawing emphatically. "Yes. And you've been watching us evolve, watching us develop this whole time." Another yes. I sat down heavily. "Why? Why watch us?" The creature drew again. This time, it showed its people in the forests, humans in the valleys and plains, separate but aware of each other. Then it drew something that looked like conflict, like violence, humans with weapons, its people retreating deeper into wilderness. And then a symbol that looked like a choice being made. You chose to hide, to let us think you were myths. The creature nodded. Then it drew something that made my heart sink. It showed its people dwindling in numbers, their territory shrinking as human civilization expanded. And at the end of the timeline, a question mark. You're going extinct. The creature made a sound of affirmation, but also something else. Acceptance. And the government knows this? The creature pointed at the observation window and made a harsh, angry sound. Then it drew something new. Government figures, researchers, taking specimens, taking blood, taking tissue samples, and keeping it all secret. They're studying you to understand you before you disappear completely. They want your biological secrets before your species is gone. The creature nodded slowly. Then it drew one more thing. The marked location from the map again, the gathering place, and it drew a number. There are 37 of you left, total. The creature confirmed it. Then it placed one hand on the drawing of the isolated figure, itself, and made a simple gesture, counting, subtracting. You're not one of 37. They can't count you because you're here. There are 38 of your species left in existence, and you've been locked in this room for 34 years while your people thought you were dead. The creature turned to look at me with those devastating, intelligent eyes, and I understood everything in that moment. This wasn't about national security. This wasn't about scientific research. This was about keeping a dying species imprisoned so we could learn everything about them before they vanished. And one individual had been sacrificed, stolen from its family to give us that knowledge. This is wrong, I said out loud, knowing the researchers were listening. This is fundamentally, morally wrong. The creature made a soft sound, agreement, but also resignation. It had been trying to tell people this for years, and no one had listened. What do you want me to do? I asked. What do you need? The creature drew one final image, simple and clear, a figure walking out through an open door. Freedom. You want to go home? The creature placed both hands over its heart, then gestured toward the drawing of its people. Home, family, the end of its life spent with its kind, rather than in this concrete tomb. I'll try, I said, though I had no idea how. I promise you I'll try. The creature reached out and gently touched my shoulder. A gesture of gratitude and also of understanding. It knew the odds. When I left Containment Room 7 3 hours after I'd entered, I went directly to the observation room where Pritchard, the colonel, and the NSA woman waited. Well, the colonel asked, what did it communicate? It communicated that it's been a prisoner of war for 34 years, I said, my voice shaking with anger. It communicated that there are 37 others of its species left in existence, and it hasn't seen them since you captured it. It communicated that your research program is documenting the extinction of an intelligent species that you're keeping in a cell. Agent Rivera, the NSA woman said carefully, you need to understand the larger picture. I understand the picture perfectly. You're committing a crime against consciousness itself. These creatures, the colonel said, possess biological and cognitive capabilities we don't understand. Studying them could advance human knowledge in medicine, neurology, anthropology. By torturing a sentient being, I interrupted, by keeping it in isolation until it literally tried to starve itself to death just to get someone to listen. What exactly did it tell you? Pritchard asked quietly. I told them everything. The drawings, the timeline, the connection between species, the dwindling population, the desperate request to be returned to its people. When I finished, the room was silent. Finally, the colonel spoke. That information is now classified at the highest level. You will not repeat it to anyone outside this facility. That creature has rights, I said. It's intelligent, it's self-aware, it's suffering. It's not human, the NSA woman said. Legally, it has no rights. Morally, ethically, that's a debate that's above your pay grade, Agent Rivera. Is it? I stood up. Because I just spent 3 hours talking to something more honest and decent than anyone in this room. It didn't ask for revenge. It didn't ask for reparations. It just asked to go home before it dies. And you're telling me that's not even a consideration? There are national security implications, the colonel said. If we release it, we lose our only source of direct information about this species. They're going extinct, I said. There are 37 left. What information do you need? You've had 34 years. Agent Rivera, Pritchard said, his tone warning. Stand down. I looked at all of them. At the faces of people who had become so comfortable with a monstrous status quo that they couldn't even see the monstrosity anymore. I want to request a formal review of this case, I said, through proper channels. Request denied, the colonel said immediately. This program is classified. There are no proper channels available to you. Then I'm filing a report about interrogation conditions and the psychological state of the subject. At minimum, you need to improve its living situation. Noted, the NSA woman said in a tone that meant it would be ignored. I left that meeting knowing I'd accomplished nothing except making myself a problem. Over the next 2 weeks, I was called back to Fort Detrick 5 more times. Each session with the creature was longer, more detailed. We refined our communication system. It told me more about its people, their culture, their understanding of the world. And every session, it asked the same question with its drawings and gestures. Can I go home? And every session, I had to tell it through my expressions and tone that I was failing, that the people in charge wouldn't budge. The creature grew more despondent with each visit. By the 4th session, it had stopped eating again. By the 5th session on October 3rd, 2001, it was lying on its sleeping platform, barely moving. You're giving up, I said, sitting beside it. Please don't give up. The creature looked at me with exhausted eyes. Then it did something that broke my heart. It drew one more picture, a figure lying down, peaceful, with its eyes closed, and around it, the other figures of its people, together. You want to die with them. If you can't live with them, you at least want to die near them. The creature made a soft, affirming sound. I can't make that happen either, I said, feeling more helpless than I ever had. They won't let you go. Not even to die. The creature reached out and took my hand in its massive palm, a gentle squeeze. Forgiveness. It understood I had tried. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I'm so goddamn sorry. On October 15th, 2001, I received a call at 2 a.m. The creature had died during the night. Sudden cardiac failure according to the preliminary autopsy. But I knew the truth. It had died of heartbreak and despair. I attended the classified debriefing about its death. The researchers discussed what they'd learned from the autopsy, the tissue samples they'd preserved, the data they'd collected. No one mentioned the creature's intelligence, its personhood, or the fact that it had died begging to see its family one last time. Agent Rivera, the colonel said as the meeting ended, your services are no longer needed for this program. You'll be returned to your normal duties. Remember your classification obligations. What about the others? I asked. The 37 that are still out there. Are you going to try to capture more? That's classified, he said. They're going extinct. You could help them, protect their habitat, create preserves, something. Not our mandate, the NSA woman said. Our job is to monitor and document, not to interfere with natural evolutionary processes. You already interfered. You took one of them and kept it in a cell for 34 years. This conversation is over, Agent Rivera. I left Fort Detrick that day, knowing I'd witnessed something that would haunt me for the rest of my life. I'd met a non-human intelligence, communicated with it, understood its pain, and been unable to help it. For the next 23 years, I've kept this secret. I continued my FBI career, eventually retiring in 2018. I signed documents promising to never speak about what I'd seen, documents that came with criminal penalties if I violated them. But I'm 58 years old now. I have terminal cancer. 6 months, maybe a year if I'm lucky. And I've decided those documents don't matter anymore. The creature I met in 2001 deserved better. It deserved to have its story told. It deserved for people to know that humanity encountered another intelligent species and chose to keep it prisoner rather than try to coexist. I don't know if there are still Sasquatch out there in the Pacific Northwest. The last classified report I saw before I retired suggested the population had dropped to fewer than 20. They may already be extinct by now, a species that survived for hundreds of thousands of years, gone in the blink of an evolutionary eye because we wouldn't share the forests with them. If they are still out there, I hope they stay hidden. I hope they've learned from what we did to the one we caught. I hope they understand that humanity isn't ready to accept their existence with grace or compassion. I hope they survive us. The creature in Containment Room 7 never told me its real name. It couldn't, not with its vocal limitations, but in my mind, I called it Teacher. Because it taught me something essential about intelligence and consciousness that I'd never understood before. Being human doesn't make you worthy of rights and dignity. Being conscious does. Being capable of suffering does. Being able to hope and fear and love and grieve, that's what matters. And we failed that test, badly. I'm telling this story now because I have nothing left to lose, and because that creature's last drawing is burned into my memory. That simple image of a figure lying peacefully, surrounded by its people. It died wanting something so basic, so fundamental, and we denied it even that small mercy. If there are other intelligent species out there, whether in our forests or somewhere in the cosmos, I hope we do better next time. I hope we choose compassion over curiosity. I hope we choose coexistence over exploitation. But based on what I witnessed in that underground facility in 2001, I'm not optimistic. The truth I learned from interrogating a Bigfoot is simple and devastating. We're not alone on this planet. We never were. And when we had the chance to prove ourselves worthy of sharing it, we chose to build a cage instead of opening a door. That's the truth they never wanted me to hear. That's the truth they classified and buried and threatened people to keep silent. But I heard it. And now, with what little time I have left, I'm making sure you hear it too. The creature is gone. Its people are probably gone. But the truth remains. And maybe, just maybe, knowing what we've done will make us think harder the next time we encounter something different, something unknown. Something that challenges our understanding of what intelligence and consciousness mean. I interviewed a Bigfoot in 2001. It told me humanity's greatest secret. Not that these creatures exist, but that we know they exist, and we chose cruelty over kindness when we finally caught one. That's what they classified, that's what they buried, that's what cost an innocent, intelligent being 34 years of its life and a lonely, desperate death far from everything it loved. I'm Marcus Rivera. I was an FBI special agent, and I'm done keeping their secrets. The truth is out there, finally.